In March 2020, the average diversified investor lost 34% of their portfolio in just 33 days. Not because their stocks fell, but because everything fell at once. US stocks, international stocks, REITs, high-yield bonds, even gold dropped 12% on the initial panic. All of it at the same time together. So here's the question no one in the financial industry wants you to ask. If everything falls together when it matters the most, what is diversification actually protecting you from? Today, I'm going to be challenging one of the most sacred beliefs in investing. Not to tell you to be reckless, but to give you the framework that serious investors actually use, which looks almost nothing like what the industry is selling you. Let's start at the beginning. Modern portfolio theory, created by Harry Markowitz in 1952, was Nobel Prize winning work and was genuinely brilliant. The core insight is elegant. By combining assets that don't move in perfect correlation with each other, you can reduce portfolio volatility without sacrificing returns. You don't have to accept more risk to get more return. You just have to own different kinds of risk. Now that insight changed finance forever, and at its core, it's correct. But here's where the financial industry took a great idea and ran it off a cliff. They translated that diversification reduces risk into more diversification equals more safety. And then they built trillion-dollar product lines around that assumption. Index funds covering 500 companies, ETFs spanning geographies, bond markets, commodity markets, wrapping it all up together and calling it the perfect portfolio. Now I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying index investing is bad. For a passive investor with a 30-year time horizon and no interest in active management, that simple index strategy beats most active managers over the long run. That's a fact. But what I'm specifically challenging here today is something different. I am challenging the belief, the assumption that simply owning more automatically means reduced risk. Trap 1. Diworsification. You're diluting your best ideas. Peter Lynch, who ran Fidelity's Magellan Fund, returned a 29.2% compounding annual return over 13 years, and is one of the greatest track records in fund management history. And he coined a specific term for what kills most retail investors' portfolios. Instead of diversification, he termed it diworsification, the act of diversifying your portfolio into mediocrity. Here's the math, and I want you to sit with this. Imagine you do the real research, not a Reddit thread, not a Twitter recommendation, genuine work, and you identify 5 companies you truly believe in, with strong fundamentals, a clear competitive advantage, a technical setup that's confirming the thesis. Now, imagine you also hold 45 other positions, because diversification says you should. Your 5 best ideas are now a rounding error in your portfolio. If every single one of your 5 picks goes up 50%, congratulations, you've hardly moved the needle. Meanwhile, your 45 safe positions drag your average return back to the market average. You worked hard, you found the winners, and with diversification, you mathematically ensured that they would not win for you. Not to mention, you're now spending 10 times more time maintaining a portfolio that's structurally designed to produce average results. That's diversification, and that's not just a theory. It's the exact portfolio that most retail investors are actually running right now. Trap 2, the correlation collapse. It fails when you need it the most. So here's the dirty secret about diversification. It works beautifully in normal markets, but the moment you need it most, in a real crisis, it failed you. Why? Because in a genuine market panic, everything falls at once. US stocks fall, international stocks fall, REITs fall, high-yield bonds fall, commodities fall. Even the assets that are supposed to be safe havens, these get sold off in the initial liquidity crunch. Because every investor needs cash at the same time. We saw it in 2008 and we saw it again in 2022, where stock markets and bonds fell simultaneously, breaking that 60-40 model split that had been the industry standard for decades. When fear is actually in control, when the market is in real freefall, your diversified portfolio falls together. The protection you thought you had turns out to be a feature of calm markets only. It disappears precisely when you need it. And here's the brutal irony. The investors who were most diversified going into those drawdowns, they had the most assets positioned to fall. Trap 3, false security. Diversification hides the risk that you're actually taking. This is the psychological trap. It might be the most dangerous one yet. When you hold a broadly diversified portfolio, you feel protected. That feeling reduces urgency, it reduces the drive to understand what you actually own, and risks tend to get buried. You might think you've diversified across sectors, but in practice, you're exposed to the same underlying macro drivers, be it interest rates, consumer spending cycles, AI capex, energy, and when any of these break, your diversified portfolio moves together anyway. So let me ask you something directly. Do you know what the top 10 holdings are in each of your ETFs? Do you know your real exposure to any single sector across all your assets? If everything was sold off tomorrow, would you know why your portfolio dropped? Most people don't. And the industry is designed to keep it all that way. The complexity obscures what's really a fairly simple product. Own everything, pay the fee, feel safe, and come back next quarter. Feeling safe and being safe are not the same thing. Trap 4. International diversification doesn't work the way you think it does. In theory, owning European, Asian, and emerging market stocks alongside US equities reduces concentration risk. In practice though, over recent decades, international markets have frequently sold off at the same time that US markets have too. They've also delivered meaningfully lower returns over extended periods, not to mention adding currency risk and geopolitical risk without added compensation for any of these. The real world benefit has been far smaller than models predicted. Now, that doesn't mean geographic exposure has no role. Not at all. The distinction is this. Geographic exposure, when done right, isn't about owning international indexes to feel diversified. It's about identifying where the macro cycle is generally different and concentrating there with conviction. David Tepper did exactly this when he went full bull on China. His portfolio exposure reached as high as 80% purely on Chinese equities at one point, and this is not traditional diversification. This is high conviction geographic concentration, because his thesis was that China was a completely different macro environment to the US and majorly undervalued. It turns out he was right and the returns soon followed. Now that's a fundamentally different mindset than own some international stocks because the textbook says so. Trap 5. Concentration is how the best investors actually win. This is the one I want you to sit with the longest. The best investors in the world don't diversify broadly, they concentrate deliberately. Let's look at Berkshire Hathaway's public equity portfolio. This focuses on just 42 holdings, with the top 5 holdings making up the majority of the book. Now, Berkshire Hathaway has nearly 400,000 employees and has the great mind of Warren Buffett and Greg Abel behind it, but they choose to concentrate in just 42 stocks. Let's go one step further. Stanley Druckenmiller, one of the most accomplished macro-driven investors of the last century, a man who managed risk for a living, he put it very plain in terms of this quote: "Put all your eggs into one basket and then watch that basket very carefully." He also said, the way to build long-term returns is through preservation of capital and home runs. You don't need a lot of diversification. So these guys are not reckless gamblers. These guys are among the most disciplined risk managers in the history of the industry. And they concentrate because the real return comes from conviction. If you truly understand the business, its competitive moat, its cash flow trajectory, why it's mispriced, and what will close that gap, then why would you only allocate 1% of your portfolio to it? This is where you need to concentrate. Diversification forces you to treat your best ideas the same as the weakest ones. It enforces a false equality across your portfolio that has nothing to do with your actual level of understanding of each position. You don't outperform by owning more, you outperform by understanding more and having the conviction to act on it. Before I get into what good diversification actually looks like, if this kind of breakdown is useful to you, then hit subscribe. I put out this level of analysis every week, and there's a lot more in the pipeline. If you want the full model, portfolio framework, and our monthly watch list, those are on the Patreon link in the description. We have a free trial link, so consider signing up. Now, let's talk about what to actually do instead. I've spent the last 10 minutes attacking a belief that's central to most retail investing strategy. So let me be precise about what I'm saying. I'm not saying diversification is wrong. I'm saying mindless diversification is dangerous. Here's the framework that actually works. Principle 1. Balance conviction with diversification. The best portfolios don't choose between concentration and diversification. They hold both, with clear roles for each. Your core positions drive your returns, whereas your diversified plays protect your capital. That's the structure. Not own everything and let the average work in your favor. Good diversification doesn't dilute conviction, it protects it. Principle number 2. Diversify by risk driver, not by the number of holdings. Most investors think that diversification means owning more stocks. It doesn't. Owning 30 companies that all move with consumer spending cycles isn't diversification, it's concentration. It's just distributed across 30 different holdings instead of 5. The key word is uncorrelated, not different investments that happen to move together. Think about actual return drivers. Equities are tied to consumer behavior, commodities tied to supply and demand shocks, real assets are tied to inflation, and fixed income is tied to interest rate cycles. These don't all move in the same direction for the same reason, and that is real diversification. It has nothing to do with number of equities in your portfolio. Principle number 3, use technical analysis as a tool. Here's where our community has an edge. We use technical analysis not just to time entries and exits, but to size positions intelligently based on the strength of the setup. When a stock is breaking out of a consolidation pattern, with volume confirmation and strong fundamentals backing it, that deserves a larger allocation. When a chart breaks down, or when trading in a high-risk zone, you trim. You let the technical picture guide how concentrated or diversified you are at any given time. This is a dynamic diversification, not a static set up and forget and own everything approach, but a living, breathing framework that responds to what the market is actually telling you. The next thing I want to talk about is the retail investor specific problem. I want to address this directly because we're a retail investor community and there's a specific dynamic at play for us. For institutional investors, be it the hedge funds, the pension funds, or even the sovereign wealth funds, these guys diversify at scale partly because the mandates require it. They manage so much capital that concentration creates liquidity problems. A fund managing $10 billion can't put 20% into a small cap stock without moving the market. But you don't have that problem. Your portfolio size is actually your structural advantage. You can be nimble. You can take concentrated positions without moving markets. And you can exit quickly. You can find opportunities in small, less covered companies that institutional money literally cannot access at scale. So when you over-diversify a retail portfolio to mimic institutional portfolio construction, you're solving a problem that isn't there, while simultaneously giving up the advantages that your size actually gives you. That's the trap in full, and now you can see it clearly. So here's where I land. Modern portfolio theory was right about the math. The financial industry took that math and built products designed to serve their distribution models, not your portfolio. The retail investor's real edge has never been diversification. It's nimbleness, concentrated understanding, and the ability to act with genuine conviction when you've done the work. And over-diversification trades that edge for the feeling of safety. Diversify by the risk driver, not by the number of holdings. Build conviction positions you truly understand and use diversifiers to protect your downside, not to feel safer than you actually are. So in summary, own less, understand more, and act with conviction. You are here because you want to be better than that, and you are. And if this changed the way you think about your portfolio even slightly, give it a like. Costs you nothing, and it helps this community to find people who are genuinely trying to learn. Feel free to comment below and let me know how many investments are in your portfolio, and subscribe if you want to keep building this knowledge. Thank you for joining today.